Ineos are planning to bring in 2 players at least before pre-season starts for Manchester United as part of their 5-window grand plan to rejuvenate Manchester United. Like, share, and subscribe. Here is a quick update. This is coming through from Ornstein, and of course, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been speaking, and we've been listening to him really critically. And here is a detailed expose of what Ineos are planning to do. And the key thing you need to understand is that it will take patience. According to Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself, the things that are going to do at Manchester United will not come overnight. Guys, you need to be patient. This is all they are requesting for now. The grand plan for Ineos now, the focus now is on a centre back and a striker. At least they want to bring in those two before preseason begins. That's the plan they have come up with. They know that signing players is not a one-day event. It's not, you waking up and saying, I have the money, I want these players. No, it's a process that they have got to think about and execute meticulously. Now, they are saying that at least if they can bring in a centre back and the striker before preseason, that would be a decent start. This is according to what we gather from Ineos. Of course, they have already approached Jared Branthwaite, and their bid was rejected by Everton. They have approached now, Joshua Zirkzee. So those are the two that they are looking at, but they have got other plans in place for players they can look at in case they fail on their first priorities. But their biggest focus now, from what we are getting, is a centre back and a striker. But the grand plan is across 5 windows, or five transfer windows. Now, that is when we shall then begin to judge them and say, what have they done in these windows? So that is what they're trying to do. So for them, right now, the immediate is bring in a striker and a centre back, 2 players before preseason, then tie down the manager Eric Ten Hag to a longer contract. That is the immediate for them. Then mid-term would probably be, if they are lucky and they can get a good centre back, because they're already putting together names, a good centre back, a good winger in these other in this summer transfer window, they will still go for them. So what that means is, probably, like we kept saying, that Ineos may not be planning to let go of all the players would want them to let go of at a go. And I don't think that would be a smart thing to do. I don't think you come and just shock the team. You let go of 8 players and bring in 8 more. No, you want to phase it out gradually. I think if you look at all the other clubs that have rebuilt, I think that's what they have done. You look at Arsenal, that's what they did. They phased out, let go of Mesut Ozil, Aubameyang. They let go of players like who else? I think was it Santi Cazorla. They released players in phases, and before you knew it, they had cleared the squad and brought in entirely new players. That is exactly how you handle a team, a transition. So Ineos are aware. They have said, whereas they know the players they want to leave, it's not going to happen overnight. So they are going to introduce it and phase them out systematically. This is the plan of Ineos now, but the focus is on a centre back, and we know the names they have looked at, the likes of Mathis de Ligt, the likes of Todibo, who now is not an option because they have been blocked by UEFA, but they do have their names in place. Joshua Zirkzee is the striker, but Sahu Girassi is still in the conversations. United, Chelsea, Borussia Dortmund are all interested in monitoring Sahu Girassi. The situation with Sahu Girassi. Honestly, if we don't get Zirkzee, for whichever reasons I perhaps explained to you in my last video, I think for me, Girassi would be a good option. His buyout clause is £15 million, peanuts. We should be able to get him. But he's still there in terms of on the list of players that Ineos could be looking at for a striker. So watch out for those 2 positions when it comes to Manchester United, exactly first before preseason begins. Preseason is not so far from us. Just 2 days after the final of the UEFA, rather of the Euros, we shall be starting preseason. So it's very important that Manchester United get those 2 players, at least according to the plan of Ineos. I think that would be a good start, honestly. I remember in the last summer, the first 2 signings I think we made were Mount and I think Onana and Andrew Onana. And then we waited until it was the end of the window for us to bring in Sofiane Amrabat. So it's very important, at least you have 2 best players to start with when it comes to a new season. I think their plan is to directly replace the 2 that we know have left in Varane and Anthony Martial, which should be an obvious plan. But we know that Casemiro, whose contract runs out in 2026, is likely to leave, but they've got to persuade him to want to go to Saudi Arabia. But that might take time. He might be there for preseason, and before he leaves, United might not be able to get the Joao Neves we want. But also for the other positions, the wingers, the wingers we want to bring in, we know we need to first sell Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho. Greenwood is linked to Napoli, linked to Lazio, linked to Valencia, linked to Juventus. Perhaps there should be progress. One of those clubs should be able to take him. For Sancho, it's still a confusion, yet they know they've got to let go of him. So that's why Ineos are saying we might be able to sort the two problems that are already there, Varane and Anthony Martial, who left their replacements, but we might need a bit of time to be able to be sure that we can actually get players in the other departments. That's the wing and the midfield. So it's going to be, I think, don't expect English. And I've seen people complaining and making noise saying, I mean, again, we are just talking and talking. Where is the work? We're not having the work done. But even the Euros themselves are slowing down the process, especially when it comes to players like Joshua Zirkzee, who is in the Euros. I mean, you need the player there as well if you're going to convince them to come and join your team. So, or even the Euros are slowing down the process in terms of departures and everything. So the focus is on the Euros. So you also don't want to unprofessionally distract players who are focusing on a serious competition with their countries. You're confusing them with transfers. So even if their representatives might be available to talk to them, the focus of the players will be on the Euros. When the Euros are done, or when they're out of the Euros, then they can focus on their future when it comes to the club. So it's a 5-window plan, and after 5 windows would be so they didn't specify whether 5 summer transfer windows, because then that would be 5 years almost clearly. But there is this window, there is the January window, then another window. So 5 windows would be like 2 years or 2.5 years. That's the period, which for me I think is realistic if you're building a club. It's really realistic for me, if you ask me. So they also talk about Wolves player called Kilman, who is wanted by West Ham United, but United are also monitoring him. West Ham, I believe, to be tabling about £40 million for him, which Wolves are said to reject, according to what we gather. So the valuation is a bit high, but United are focused now on a centre back and a striker before pre-season. The money for those seems to be there, at least that we know. It's clearly there. If those are sorted, then they can try to look at the whole template and see, okay, in preseason, if we start with Casemiro, how will he look? How will he be performing? As they try to convince him to join a club in Saudi Arabia that could be interested in him and should be willing to pay money that will indeed bring in a replacement for him, because we know that a replacement for Casemiro will be extremely expensive. Extremely. The Joao Neves we are talking about are priced at over £100 million. So Ineos are saying we are taking it one step at a time. And one step at a time for me is not a problem. It might take a little bit, come with a little bit of pain, because patience pains, but it pays eventually. So for me, my feeling is we should be able to take the pain so long as we are going to be paid after the pain, which should be nearly a guarantee, if you ask me, given what Ineos are doing. But the priorities now, to wrap it up for you, are a centre back, a striker, and Eric Ten Hag keeping his contract according to what we are getting. My name is Webb. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will be back later in case there is more news when it comes to the players we are trying to bring in, especially the centre back and, of course, Joshua Zirkzee.